The bistro's candlelight did nothing to soften the moment Jessica Morrison stood and gathered her coat after exactly 14 minutes. Her parting words landed with surgical precision. "Your daughter is baggage, Garrett. I want to start fresh, not play stepmother to someone else's complications." The restaurant pulsed with laughter from other tables, families celebrating, couples leaning close. Even a solo diner absorbed contentedly in her novel. Everyone belonged except him. Garrett Sullivan stared at his untouched wine, calculating the damage. $43 for public humiliation. Money that should have bought Harper's winter boots or the dental appointment he'd been postponing since August. His coat showed professional mending at the elbow. His shoes had been resoled twice. Every visible surface of his life advertised careful poverty. The kind that came from raising a 7-year-old alone on an IT administrator's salary while buried under medical debt from a wife who'd died giving birth. This was his third rejection this year, his life apparently forever. "Excuse me." The voice came from a nearby table, female controlled, carrying something dangerous beneath its professional veneer. Garrett turned. She sat alone, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, severely navy dress that whispered money in ways Garrett had learned to recognize. But her eyes held something he knew intimately, the particular isolation that came from being rejected for circumstances you couldn't change. "I couldn't help overhearing." She gestured to the empty chair at her table. "This will sound completely insane, but I have a proposition for you." Garrett's hand was on the door handle, escape within reach. Yet something in her expression, that raw vulnerability wrapped in perfect composure, stopped him. "I'm listening. Would you consider being my husband?" The restaurant noise didn't stop. The happy family kept celebrating. The couple remained absorbed in each other, but for Garrett everything narrowed to this stranger and her impossible question. "I'm sorry, what? I'm proposing marriage. Not immediately, obviously, but as a serious possibility. A partnership." She maintained eye contact with the directness of someone accustomed to courtrooms. "Please sit. Let me explain before you decide. I'm completely unhinged." Garrett's rational mind cataloged reasons to walk away, yet his feet carried him to her table. He sat. "Is this some kind of elaborate joke? I assure you my situation is far too pathetic for pranks." She tilted her head slightly. "You're Garrett Sullivan, Corrected Systems Administrator at Sterling Solutions. Daughter Harper, 7 years old. Widower for approximately 7 years, based on your profile timeline." The precision of her knowledge sent alarm bells ringing. "How do you—" "The same dating app your recent companion used. Though I never messaged you. I saw your profile months ago and assumed you'd find my circumstances as unsuitable as I apparently find yours unsuitable." She extended her hand with boardroom formality. "Victoria Ashford, Senior Associate at Morrison & Hayes, and I'd very much like 5 minutes of your time to present what might be the solution to both our problems." Garrett studied her, the expensive dress, the flawless presentation, the tremor in her fingers she couldn't quite suppress. Desperation and calculation in equal measure. He took her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, practiced. 5 minutes. Victoria waited until he'd settled completely before continuing. "I'm going to be brutally direct because I suspect we're both exhausted from pretense. I'm 36 years old. School. Successful career in corporate law. Own my condominium outright. Excellent health insurance. Comfortable life by every objective measure." She paused and something flickered across her face, pain she'd learned to mask but couldn't quite eliminate. "I also cannot have biological children due to complications from an accident 9 years ago. That single medical fact has rendered me fundamentally unmarketable in every dating context I've attempted." The bitterness in her clinical assessment hit harder than anger would have. "That's incredibly unfair. Fairness is irrelevant to outcomes." Victoria's lawyer precision returned. 3 years attempting traditional dating avenues, apps, professional mixers, family setups. Without exception, when I disclose my infertility, men vanish. Some are kind about their exit, most aren't, but the result never varies. She lifted her wine glass, examining the burgundy liquid as if it contained answers. Meanwhile, you face the inverse problem. You already have a child, which automatically disqualifies you from an entire category of potential partners. Women who want to start fresh without the complications of existing children, step-parenting, shared histories. Garrett shifted uncomfortably, her accuracy cutting too close. You really did read my profile. And the comment history on every photo? You're clearly devoted to your daughter, work hard, honest about your limitations, yet still rejected because you come as a package deal. Victoria set down her glass with deliberate care. So here's my proposition. What if we solved each other's problems? You want to marry someone you've never met because we both get rejected frequently? That's insane. I believe I opened with that assessment. Her slight smile held no humor. But consider the logistics. I want a family but cannot have biological children. You have a daughter who needs a mother figure and a partner who won't view her as an obstacle. I can provide financial stability and security. You can provide the family structure I'll never otherwise achieve. She met his gaze with uncomfortable directness. We're both exhausted, Garrett. Exhausted from isolation, exhausted from rejection, exhausted from pretending we don't desperately want what others seem to find effortlessly. This arrangement, marriage, isn't a business transaction, isn't it? Victoria's expression shifted to something almost vulnerable. My parents had an arranged marriage through their respective families. They've been together 42 years, genuinely happy. They built love from commitment and shared experience rather than the reverse. I'm not suggesting fake affection or manufactured passion. I'm suggesting we begin with radical honesty and compatible goals, then see what develops organically. Garrett wanted to argue to defend romantic love and passionate connection, but 7 years of widowhood had taught him that love alone couldn't pay bills or raise a child or prevent catastrophe. I don't even know you. No. But I know you raise your daughter alone while maintaining full-time employment. I know you budget meticulously. Those are last season's shoes, and your coat has been professionally repaired at the right elbow. Garrett's hand moved unconsciously to the mentioned repair fingers, finding the nearly invisible stitching. I know you attempted online dating despite probably loathing every moment because you're still trying to believe someone might want you despite your complications. Victoria's voice dropped, losing some of its professional polish. And I know intimately what it feels like to sit across from someone who views you as fundamentally defective because your reality doesn't align with their fantasy of a perfect future. The observation was surgical in its accuracy. Around them, the restaurant continued its cheerful operation, oblivious to this impossible negotiation unfolding in their midst. I'm not asking for a decision tonight. Victoria produced a business card with practiced efficiency. I'm asking you to consider the possibility. Meet me for coffee. Let me explain more fully. If you conclude I'm delusional, walk away and forget this conversation. But if any part of you is tired of being alone, tired of rejection, tired of watching your daughter pay the price for other people's narrow expectations. The card sat between them, cream stock with raised lettering that probably cost more than Garrett's phone bill. Victoria Ashford, Senior Associate, Morrison & Hayes, LLP. An address in the financial district suggesting corner offices and six-figure compensation. Why me specifically? There must be other single fathers on that platform. There are. Victoria's acknowledgement came without hesitation. But your profile was different. You didn't hide your daughter or minimize her presence. Every photograph included her. Every interest you listed considered her needs first, and in your biographical statement you wrote something that resonated. She recited from memory, and Garrett felt his throat constrict. Looking for someone who understands that love isn't about finding perfection. It's about choosing someone and building something real even when it's hard. He'd written that at 2 a.m. after another failed date, convinced no one would respond to such earnest vulnerability in a marketplace rewarding wit and carefully curated mystery. That's not what most people want to hear. Most people are searching for easy chemistry, some magical spark making everything effortless. Victoria's fingers traced her wine glass rim, but I don't believe in that anymore. I believe in compatibility and commitment and the deliberate choice to build something worth maintaining. She stood leaving cash on her table. Garrett glimpsed 50s more than the meal cost, and gathered her coat with economical movements. Think about it, or don't, but you have my information if you decide you're tired of being alone. She moved toward the exit with the confidence of someone who knew her worth even in the face of probable rejection. At the door she paused and looked back. For what it's worth, that woman who walked out tonight is a fool. Any child who has you as a father is extraordinarily fortunate. Then she vanished into the December night, leaving Garrett with a business card and the most bizarre proposition he'd ever encountered. He remained seated, turning the card between his fingers. The texture screamed success and stability. His phone buzzed, Mrs. Kowalski checking in. Harper's asleep. Don't rush home. Hope it went well. Garrett's laugh emerged bitter. Well was one interpretation. He pocketed Victoria's card and pushed into cold air that bit his face and hands. The street emptied as restaurants closed and families hurried home to warm houses and waiting children. Tomorrow was Christmas. Harper would wake excited despite their modest circumstances, thrilled with whatever small gifts Garrett had scraped together. But she noticed. Of course she noticed. Noticed when other kids discussed mothers. Noticed when school events requested both parents. Noticed when her father returned from failed dates wearing that particular expression of quiet defeat. Garrett stopped at the corner, breath fogging in freezing air. An impossible proposition from a stranger. Marriage of convenience, solving mutual problems. Absurd, reckless, potentially dangerous. Also the first honest conversation he'd had with another adult in years. His apartment waited, cramped two-bedroom in a building that had seen better decades. Mrs. Kowalski met him at the door with careful neutrality about his evening. She was kind that way, this 72-year-old Polish immigrant who'd become more family than his actual relatives ever managed. Harper made a Christmas card, worked on it all evening. Garrett found it by the refrigerator, construction paper folded with slightly crooked stars. Inside Harper's careful printing, "Merry Christmas, Daddy. I love you most in the whole world." The message cracked something in his chest. He paid Mrs. Kowalski cash he couldn't spare and locked the door behind her. Harper's room was quiet, the nightlight casting soft shadows. She'd sprawled across her bed with that boneless abandon only children achieved, dark hair tangled on the pillow, one arm wrapped around the stuffed rabbit that had belonged to her mother. 7 years old and already so much like Claire. Same stubborn chin, same generous spirit, same unconscious grace that made Garrett's heart hurt with everything Harper had lost before she could remember. Claire would have known what to do about Victoria's proposition. Would have laughed at the absurdity while seriously considering possibilities. She'd always been braver, more willing to risk for potential reward. But Claire was gone and Garrett was here alone, trying to be enough for a child who deserved infinitely more than a father who couldn't successfully navigate dinner dates. He retreated to the kitchen and pulled out Victoria's card. In harsh fluorescent light it looked intimidating, representing professional polish from worlds Garrett barely understood. He should discard it, should forget this bizarre evening and return to his careful, constrained existence. The safe choice, the reasonable choice. Instead, he opened his laptop and typed Victoria Ashford Morrison Hayes into the search engine. Her professional photograph appeared immediately, same intelligent eyes, same composed expression. The firm's website outlined impressive trajectory: Cornell Law, federal clerkship, rapid advancement to senior associate. Published articles on corporate litigation strategy, pro bono work with family advocacy organizations. A woman who'd built success through sheer competence. Garrett dug deeper, finding mentions in legal journals, quotes in business articles. Nothing about personal life, no social media presence, no public relationships, no candid event photographs, just meticulously curated professional achievement. Which made her public proposition tonight even more striking. Whatever drove Victoria to approach a stranger in a restaurant wasn't impulsiveness. This woman calculated risks, planned meticulously, and was possibly as desperate and lonely as him. Garrett closed his laptop and moved to the window, gazing over scattered city lights. Somewhere out there, Victoria was probably second-guessing her decision, mortified by her exposure, convinced he'd dismiss her as delusional. The sensible response would prove her right, but Garrett had been sensible for 7 years. Sensible had gotten him rejected 3 times this year alone. Sensible meant another decade of isolation while Harper watched her father retreat from life's possibilities. His phone sat on the counter, dark and accusing. One call could change everything, or destroy everything. Behind him, Harper stirred in sleep, murmuring something inaudible before settling back into dreams where mothers existed and loneliness was merely vocabulary. Garrett picked up his phone and dialed before doubt could stop him. Victoria answered on the 3rd ring, carefully neutral despite the late hour. "This is Victoria. It's Garrett Sullivan, from the restaurant." A pause. He heard her breath catch before she regained composure. "I wasn't certain I'd hear from you." "I'm not certain this isn't completely insane, but I'm willing to listen. Coffee tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Grind on 5th, same neighborhood as the restaurant." "I'll be there." "And Victoria, this is just coffee, just conversation. I'm not agreeing to anything except listening." "Understood completely. Thank you for calling, for being willing to consider possibilities." "Don't thank me yet. You might regret this entire thing by tomorrow. Or you might." Her tone carried something that might have been humor. "Sleep well, Garrett." The call ended, leaving Garrett holding a phone, a business card, and the faint stirring of something dangerously close to hope. The coffee shop Victoria had suggested was aggressively upscale beans sourced from cooperatives with unpronounceable names, pastries costing what Garrett usually spent on entire meals. He arrived in department store slacks and bargain rack shirt, feeling acutely displaced, but pretending confidence he didn't possess. Victoria occupied a corner table, weekend casual that probably exceeded Garrett's monthly grocery budget. She looked up as he approached, and relief flickered across her carefully composed features. "You came." "I almost didn't." Garrett sat accepting the coffee she'd already ordered. Black 1 sugar, exactly as his profile specified. The attention to detail should have been unsettling, but felt considerate instead. "I spent 3 days convincing myself this was insane. And yet here you are." Victoria's slight smile suggested she'd experienced similar doubts. "Here to listen. That's my only commitment right now." "That's more than I had any right to expect." Victoria wrapped her hands around something complicated with Italian descriptors Garrett didn't recognize. "I owe you fuller explanation, and apology for ambushing you Christmas night. You were desperate. I was having the worst holiday of my life." Victoria's admission came with a slight crack in her professional veneer. "Christmas dinner with my parents, my mother making increasingly unsubtle commentary about my empty house and wasted potential. My father suggesting I consider adoption as a consolation prize since I couldn't have real children." She took a deliberate breath, reestablishing control. "And my younger sister married 3 kids, perfect suburban existence, spent the entire meal treating me like I was somehow defective for not settling with whatever man would tolerate my fertility issues." Garrett watched her fingers tighten on the cup, the only visible distress in an otherwise perfectly controlled presentation. "So I went to that restaurant alone, ordered expensive wine, and tried very hard not to cry publicly. Then I watched your date walk away, heard her call your daughter baggage, and something in me just—" She gestured, suggesting rupture. "Broke. I thought, here's someone who understands, someone rejected for circumstances beyond his control, someone who might possibly be crazy enough to consider alternative approaches. You could have simply messaged me on the app. Would you have responded to a stranger proposing marriage via text?" Victoria's eyebrow rose fractionally. "I doubt it. Sometimes absurdity requires personal delivery." "Fair assessment." Garrett sipped his coffee, buying time to organize thoughts, refusing to cooperate. "Tell me about the medical situation, if we're being brutally honest." Victoria didn't flinch, meeting his gaze with steady directness. "Car accident when I was 27. Drunk driver ran a red light. I survived with relatively minor injuries except for internal damage requiring emergency surgery." They saved my life but compromised my reproductive system. The doctors were very clear biological children aren't possible. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, but Garrett meant them. So am I. Victoria's voice carried old grief processed but not forgotten. I spent 2 years in therapy working through it. Acceptance doesn't make it easier, but it makes it manageable. I know who I am and what I can offer. I just need someone willing to look past what I can't provide. And you think that's me? I think you understand limitations. Victoria's careful phrasing suggested deliberate word selection. You've spent 7 years being rejected because you have a daughter. I've spent 9 years being rejected because I can't have children. We're both exhausted from being punished for circumstances we didn't choose. She leaned forward slightly, and Garrett caught expensive perfume, something subtle and sophisticated. I'm not looking for romance, Garrett. I'm looking for partnership, compatibility, a genuine family built on honesty and mutual benefit rather than fairy tale expectations. What about love? The question escaped before Garrett could stop it, vulnerable and naive sounding. What about it? Victoria's expression softened fractionally. My parents' marriage was arranged. They learned to love each other through shared experience and commitment. It's not the story people want to hear, but it's real and it lasted. She paused, weighing her next words. I'm not saying we'll fall in love. I'm saying we might build something better than love, genuine partnership based on respect and compatible goals. Love, however real, can disappear instantly. Claire loved you desperately. Then she died, and all that love couldn't change reality or pay bills or raise Harper alone. The observation landed hard. Garrett's hands tightened on his cup. Partnership is built, deliberately maintained, consciously renewed daily. Garrett wanted to argue, to defend romantic love and passionate connection. But 7 years had taught him that love alone couldn't prevent catastrophe or ease aftermath. Tell me about Harper. Victoria shifted with lawyer-like precision. What she's like, what she needs, what you're looking for regarding her. The question surprised him with its directness. She's 7, brilliant, stubborn, terrifyingly perceptive, does well in school, loves science, wants to be an astronaut eventually. Garrett felt his expression soften. She's also starting to ask questions about why she doesn't have a mother, why other kids do and she doesn't. I've tried explaining about Claire dying, about it not being anyone's fault. But she's at the age where she's noticing differences, feeling them. Does she know you're dating? She knows I've tried, she knows it hasn't worked. Garrett's hands tightened. After tonight's disaster, she asked if women don't like her, if that's why they leave. Victoria's expression shifted to something harder, almost angry. That's unconscionable. She's a child. She's also not stupid. She hears things, picks up subtext. I'd like to meet her. Victoria's directness was characteristically lawyerly. Not as a potential stepmother that's far too premature, but as someone who might be in her life. I want to see if we're compatible before taking this further. The suggestion should have triggered every parental protection instinct. Instead, Garrett found himself considering it. Why? Because children are honest in ways adults aren't. Victoria's reasoning was pragmatic. If Harper and I don't connect, this entire proposition is moot. I'm not interested in forcing relationships or making a child accommodate adult arrangements. This only works if it's good for all three of us. Garrett studied her, trying to see past polish to the person beneath. Saturday. Park near my apartment. 2 o'clock. Harper will be there with me. You can meet her, spend time together. No pressure, no expectations. Just see what happens. Saturday. Victoria pulled out her phone. Give me your number. I'll text details. They exchanged information with businesslike efficiency. As Garrett stood to leave, Victoria caught his wrist gently. Garrett. She waited until he met her eyes. I know this seems crazy, but I promise you if we do this, I will never make your daughter feel like she's anything other than wanted. Whatever happens between us, that's my commitment. The intensity in her voice, the absolute certainty, loosened something in Garrett's chest he hadn't realized was clenched. Saturday. and he left before he could change his mind. Saturday arrived with cloudless winter sunshine turning playground equipment into gleaming primary color sculptures. Garrett arrived 15 minutes early with Harper, who immediately claimed the swings and demanded he push her astronaut high, apparently high enough to see the International Space Station, but not so high that gravity stopped functioning. Victoria appeared exactly on time, wearing jeans and a sweater that somehow managed to look both casual and expensive. She paused at the playground's edge, taking a steadying breath before approaching. "You must be Harper." Her voice carried warmth without condescension, and Garrett watched his daughter's immediate assessment eyes narrowing slightly, cataloging details with brutal 7-year-old honesty. "I'm Victoria. Your dad said you're interested in space. He said you're nice." Harper slowed her swing, studying Victoria with that unnervingly direct gaze that made adults uncomfortable. "Are you nice?" "I try to be. Try to. Though I think whether I'm nice is something you should decide for yourself." "That's a good answer." Harper appeared satisfied. "Do you know about rockets?" "Some. I had a friend in law school who worked on satellite law, the regulations about what can and can't go into space. She taught me about orbital mechanics." Harper's eyes widened. Her father recognized that expression. His daughter had found someone who spoke her language. "Really? That's so cool. Did you know that?" And she was off rattling through space facts with 7-year-old enthusiasm. Victoria listened attentively, asking follow-up questions, demonstrating genuine interest rather than polite indulgence. Garrett hung back, watching the interaction with hope and terror tangled together. This could work, or it could be catastrophic. The uncertainty was paralyzing, so he focused on observable facts. Harper was engaged. Victoria was patient. Neither seemed to be faking the connection. After an hour of playground equipment and enthusiastic lectures about Mars rovers, they moved to a nearby cafe. Harper ordered hot chocolate with extra marshmallows and continued interrogating Victoria, who fielded questions about her job, her apartment, her favorite foods, and her opinion on various scientific theories with impressive patience. "Do you have kids?" Harper asked, suddenly cutting through a discussion about black holes with characteristic directness. Victoria's expression didn't change, but Garrett saw her fingers tighten slightly on her cup, a micro-tell suggesting the question landed harder than her composed face indicated. "No, I don't. I can't have biological children because of a medical situation, but I'd very much like to have a family someday." Harper absorbed this with serious consideration. "That's sad, but my friend Emma at school is adopted, and she says that's the same as having real parents." Emma's right. Family isn't just about biology. It's about who chooses to love you and take care of you. Like my dad. Harper reached for Garrett's hand. "He chose to keep me even though Mom died. That makes him extra family." Victoria's eyes shimmered, but she blinked moisture away before tears could fall. "That makes him the very best kind of family." The visit extended past 2 hours planned, bleeding into early evening because Lily showed no signs of wanting to leave. When she finally started wilting, that subtle energy crash preceding complete collapse, Harper tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Can we do this again next week, maybe?" Victoria glanced at Garrett, who managed to nod despite the lump in his throat. "I'd like that very much. If your dad says it's okay." "It's okay." Harper delivered this with the certainty of someone deciding for multiple people simultaneously. She looked between the adults with knowing seriousness. "I like you, Victoria. You don't pretend to like me. You actually do." "I actually do." On the walk home, Harper was unusually quiet. Finally, she looked up at Garrett with serious eyes. "Is Victoria going to be my new mom?" Garrett's steps faltered. He crouched to Harper's level, meeting her gaze directly. "Would you want that if it happened?" Harper considered this with her usual thoughtful deliberation. "I think maybe yes. She's smart and she listens, and she didn't lie about not having kids, and she looked at you the way you look at pictures of Mom, like you're sad but also hoping something good might happen." She swung their joined hands. "I think Mom would like her too, because Mom would want us to be happy, right?" Garrett had to stop walking entirely, pulling his daughter close while his vision blurred. Your mom would want that more than anything. Harper hugged him back with fierce childhood intensity. Then we should see what happens. That's what you always say, we can't know until we try. Out of the mouths of children, Garrett thought, came either wisdom or disaster. Sometimes both. That night, after Harper was asleep, Garrett texted Victoria. She liked you. More importantly, you liked her. Actually liked her, not just the idea of her. That matters. The response came quickly. She's remarkable. You've done an extraordinary job raising her. And yes, I genuinely liked her. This could work, Garrett, if we're brave enough to try. Coffee again next week. Same place. We should talk logistics, expectations, timeline. Wednesday, 2 p.m. I'll bring my calendar and list of questions. You have a list, I'm a lawyer, I always have a list. Despite everything, Garrett smiled. The coffee meetings became ritual over the next 8 weeks. Week 1, Victoria's typed color-coded list versus Garrett's napkin notes. Discussion of parents' reactions, timeline, living arrangements, Harper's schooling. Week 2 brought finances with brutal honesty, making Garrett want to disappear. I owe $47,000 in medical debt, Emma's bills plus Harper's broken arm. $12,000 on credit cards, that's why the old shoes and repaired coat. Victoria didn't flinch, didn't show expected disgust. Let me help with that. I can't accept. Partnership means sharing burdens, not keeping score of who contributes what. Her interruption was gentle but firm. Your debt is from keeping Harper healthy and burying your wife with dignity. Those aren't failures, they're evidence of your priorities. Let me help carry that weight. Every instinct screamed at Garrett to refuse to protect the last shreds of masculine pride. But he could see Harper in his mind, watching, learning whether family meant sharing vulnerability or pretending to have everything under control. Okay, we tackle it together, but I'm paying you back somehow. Maybe not in money, but in time or effort or whatever equals partnership. Deal. Week 3 brought wedding discussions. Neither wanted elaborate affairs or country club receptions. Week 4 was when Victoria dropped her bombshell. I want to adopt her. Not immediately, not until she's ready and you're comfortable and we're all certain this is working, but eventually I'd like to legally become her mother, if that's something you'd consider. Garrett's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. You've thought about this, really thought about it. I've thought about little else. Harper deserves security, legal protection, someone who has the right to make decisions if something ever happened to you. And Victoria's voice caught slightly. I want that bond, not playing house or pretending. I want to be her mother in every way that matters. Something shifted in Garrett's chest, that careful wall around hope cracking just enough to let possibility leak through. She'd need to agree. This doesn't happen without her full consent. I wouldn't want it any other way. By week 6, Victoria had started spending Saturday afternoons at Garrett's apartment, arriving with groceries, always too much, always expensive brands Garrett would never buy, and helping Harper with homework while Garrett caught up on laundry and bills. They fell into easy rhythms that surprised all of them, comfortable in ways that shouldn't be possible for 3 people who'd known each other less than 2 months. Harper blossomed under the attention, soaking up Victoria's genuine interest. Victoria, in turn, seemed to unwind, shedding corporate polish like an uncomfortable coat finally removed. Garrett watched them together. Harper explaining orbital mechanics with wild gestures, while Victoria listened with absolute focus and felt something he'd thought died with Claire stirring back to life. Not love, not yet, but maybe the foundation for it. Week 7 brought the conversation Garrett had been avoiding. Tell me about your wife. Victoria made the request quietly, both on his worn couch after Harper had gone to bed, nursing wine Victoria had brought. If we're going to do this, I should know about her. About what you lost. Garrett's first instinct was to deflect, to offer the sanitized version given to strangers. But Victoria deserved better. Claire was braver than me. Always. She knew the pregnancy was high risk, knew the doctors were concerned about her heart condition. They offered to terminate, but Claire wanted Harper more than safety. His hands tightened on the cheap wine glass. She made me promise that if something went wrong, I'd choose the baby. I tried to argue, but she was adamant. She'd already decided when complications started when they told me they could only save one. Garrett's breath hitched. She'd already made that choice for me. Already signed the paperwork. I just had to live with it. That's extraordinarily cruel and extraordinarily loving. Both things can be true. 7 years of being grateful for Harper and angry at Claire and guilty for being angry. 7 years watching my daughter grow up brilliant and beautiful and wondering what Claire would think. 7 years of being so lonely I sometimes forget what it feels like not to be. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her thumb tracing circles on the back of his hand. I can't replace her. I need you to know that. I know. That's part of why this might work. You're not asking me to forget. You're just asking me to try again differently. Are we trying, actually trying, because I need to know if this is still theoretical or if we're genuinely moving towards something real? Garrett turned to face her, fully seeing past the polish to the woman beneath, lonely, hopeful, terrified of another rejection. I think we're trying. I think somewhere between coffee meetings and watching you help Harper with homework, this stopped being theoretical. I don't know if it's love yet, but it's something. Something that feels like it could grow into what we both need. Victoria's eyes shimmered. That's the most hopeful thing anyone said to me in 9 years. Then we're both pathetic. But he was smiling when he said it, and she was leaning against his shoulder, and for the first time since Claire died, Garrett let himself believe that maybe happiness wasn't something that happened to other people. Week 8 brought physical progression, a first kiss that was soft and tentative and full of promise. Holding hands became natural. They weren't sleeping together yet, both agreeing it was too soon with Harper in the equation, but attraction built steadily. I'm falling for you. Victoria's admission tumbled out one evening after Harper had gone to bed. This was supposed to be practical, a logical solution to mutual problems, but somewhere along the way it stopped being theoretical and started being real, and I'm terrified because I've never felt this before. Garrett pulled her closer. I know. I'm scared too. If this doesn't work, it'll hurt Harper, I know, which is why we don't let it fail. We fight for this, build it right brick by brick until it's strong enough to last. They kissed, then deeper than before, and Garrett responded with 7 years of pent-up longing channeled into careful restraint. The only question was whether they were brave enough to jump. Victoria's declaration came at the end of week 8 over their regular Wednesday coffee. We need to tell my parents. Garrett's stomach performed acrobatics. When's next Sunday family dinner at their house? My sister will be there, which might help. Harder to make a scene with witnesses. Victoria's expression suggested she didn't entirely believe her own optimism. But Garrett, you need to prepare yourself. My mother can be cutting when she wants to be. My father will interrogate you like a hostile witness. It won't be pleasant. The week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Garrett borrowed a suit from Marcus, his co-worker, who offered it with knowing sympathy. The haircut cost money he didn't have. Harper helped him select the blue tie Saturday night. The blue one. It makes you look like a real dad from TV. Sunday afternoon, Garrett showed up at Victoria's building with a bouquet that had decimated his grocery budget, feeling like an imposter in borrowed clothes. Victoria met him in the lobby wearing a dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. You look terrified. I am terrified. Good. Healthy fear will keep you sharp. She straightened his tie. Ready? Absolutely not. Perfect. Let's go. The Ashford family home rose from professionally manicured grounds like an accusation made of white columns and perfect symmetry. Garrett's borrowed suit felt inadequate before he'd even exited Victoria's car. His bargain rack origins visible despite the expensive tailoring Marcus had managed. Diane Ashford answered the door with a smile that managed simultaneous welcome and assessment, her eyes cataloging Garrett's appearance with practiced efficiency that made his skin prickle. How thoughtful. She accepted his flowers with the grace of royalty receiving tribute from a minor province. Do come in. The interior matched expectations: tasteful, expensive, utterly impersonal. Family photos lined hallways in frames worth more than Garrett's monthly salary, documenting Victoria's trajectory through private schools and European vacations. Each image reinforced the fundamental incompatibility of someone who summered in Provence with someone who considered New Jersey weekends extravagant. Harrison Ashford materialized from what was probably his study, tall and silver-haired and radiating the authority of decades dominating boardrooms. His handshake communicated assessment through pressure and duration, testing grip strength and resolve simultaneously. Garrett Sullivan, I understand you work in IT. Systems administration at Sterling Solutions, network infrastructure and security protocols. Technical work. Harrison's tone placed this category slightly beneath actual professional employment. And you've been with them how long? 8 years. Started in help desk, worked my way to senior admin. Garrett refused to apologize for the trajectory. It's stable employment with good benefits, which matters when raising a child alone. Something flickered in Harrison's expression, respect or irritation, impossible to determine. Before he could respond, a blonde woman swept into the room with 3 children in tow, her smile bright and vaguely predatory. You must be Garrett. I'm Vanessa, Victoria's sister, and this is my husband Trevor and our children Madison, Aiden, and Emma. The children stared at Garrett with blank assessment of those raised to judge social standing, their eyes moving from his borrowed suit to his discount shoes with efficiency suggesting training. We've heard so much about you. Well, not much really, since Victoria's been secretive about this whole thing. Victoria's jaw tightened fractionally. I'm not discussing. What I'm just saying, it's unusual. The last time was the investment banker. That was years ago. Dinner was served in a room seating 20, though only 8 gathered around polished mahogany that reflected chandelier light like accusations. Garrett found himself between Harrison and Trevor, who immediately launched into detailed golf club membership explanation. Harrison cut through Trevor's monologue with practiced ease. So Garrett, Victoria mentioned you're a widower with a daughter. That must present certain challenges. The loaded word hung between them. It presents responsibilities. My daughter is the best thing in my life. She's not a challenge. Of course. Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. But surely you find it difficult managing career, childcare, household responsibilities without support. I manage. Harper's in an excellent after-school program. We make it work. Garrett refused to elaborate, unwilling to paint his life as the struggle Harrison clearly wanted to frame it as. Diane joined the interrogation with surgical precision. Harper, such a formative age. 7, I believe. Children need stability, structure. So much disruption already, losing her mother, now her father dating. It must be quite confusing for the poor dear. The condescension in poor dear made Garrett's teeth clench. Harper is remarkably resilient. She understands our family looks different than some others, and she's learning to be proud of that rather than ashamed. Pride is all well and good. Diane's smile carried the warmth of polished steel. But children also need proper guidance, appropriate role models, exposure to, she gestured vaguely, the right environments. The subtext was clear enough to cut glass. Your world isn't good enough. You aren't good enough. Your daughter will never be good enough. Vanessa chose this moment to add her contribution. I think it's wonderful Victoria's finally dating again, though I'm surprised. You're quite different from her usual type. She caught herself, but damage was done. I just mean Victoria usually dates professionals, lawyers, executives, people with pedigrees. Garrett set down his fork with deliberate calm. I understand. Trevor jumped in with false hardiness. No one's saying that. It's just Victoria's in a certain position socially, career-wise. Her parents naturally want someone who can complement that. Someone who won't embarrass her at firm events. The words crystallized something in Garrett's chest, anger and humiliation fusing into cold clarity. That made his next move feel inevitable rather than chosen. Someone who knows which fork to use and how to make small talk about stock portfolios. The table went absolutely silent. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Harrison's voice carried careful neutrality. Garrett, I don't think anyone is trying to insult you. No. Garrett's agreement came flat and final. You're just making it clear I'm not good enough for your daughter because I didn't attend the right schools or join the right clubs or inherit the right connections. He looked directly at Diane. And you're worried my daughter, a 7-year-old child, isn't properly cultured to fit into your social circles. That's not... Diane began, but Garrett was standing now. It is exactly what you're saying. You're just too polite to say it directly, so let me be direct for all of us. The words came from somewhere deep, accumulated rejection and suppressed rage rupturing at this moment. I'm not from your world. I work for a living. I live paycheck to paycheck. My daughter's mother died giving birth because we couldn't afford medical care that might have saved them both. I've spent 7 years being rejected by people who think single fathers are too complicated to deserve second chances. He turned to Victoria, who was staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I came here because you asked me to, because I thought maybe your parents deserved a chance to see past the surface. But I won't sit here while they insult my daughter or make you feel like choosing me is charitable. Garrett pulled out his wallet and placed cash on the table, enough to cover his portion. Thank you for dinner. I can find my own way home. Victoria was on her feet instantly, but Garrett was already moving toward the foyer. He made it to the front door before she caught up, her heels clicking sharply on marble, probably costing more per square foot than his monthly rent. Don't leave, please. Her hand on his arm was gentle but insistent. They'll never accept me, Victoria, and I won't put Harper through this. Won't let her be judged and found wanting by people who measure worth in country club memberships. You're right. Victoria's agreement stopped him cold. They're being horrible, classist, unforgivable, and I should have shut it down sooner. Her eyes blazed with something fierce. But if you leave now, you're letting them win. You're proving I can't have both you and my family, that I have to choose. Maybe you do have to choose. The words emerged quieter than Garrett intended, carrying resignation tasting like ash. Victoria's voice cut through his defeat with absolute certainty. Then I choose you. I choose you and Harper and the life we're building. I choose you every time without question. She stepped closer, her hand moving from his arm to his face. But I'm not ready to give up on my parents yet. They're wrong, but they're also scared. Scared of losing me. Scared of change. Give them a chance to do better, and if they don't... Her expression hardened. Then I choose you anyway. Garrett searched her face for doubt, finding only fierce determination. One more chance. But if they go after Harper, if they suggest she's not good enough, we're done. Deal. They returned to find tense silence. Vanessa herded her children toward dessert while Trevor studied his phone with sudden fascination. Harrison and Diane sat frozen, matching expressions of discomfort. Victoria didn't sit. She stood at the table's head, transforming into someone formidable. I need to say something. Everyone listen without interruption. Her voice carried courtroom authority. Garrett is not some questionable decision requiring approval. He's a good man raising a remarkable child while building a life with more integrity than most people in your country club will achieve. Diane opened her mouth, but Victoria's raised hand stopped her. I said no interruptions. For 9 years, I've listened to concerns about my dating life, my biological limitations, my failure to produce acceptable grandchildren. I've endured setups with appropriate men who found me defective. The words came faster, propelled by years of frustration. Garrett doesn't see me as defective. His daughter doesn't see me as a backup option. They see me as someone worth choosing, worth fighting for, worth building a family with. I will not apologize for choosing them back. She paused, letting silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. I'm planning to marry him. We haven't set a date yet, but yes, I'm serious. This is happening. The only question is whether it happens with your blessing or without it. Harrison cleared his throat. Garrett, I apologize. You're right that we were unfair making assumptions based on circumstances rather than character. He gestured to the empty chair. Would you be willing to stay? Start this evening over? Garrett looked at Victoria, who nodded almost imperceptibly. One condition. You want to know about me, fine. Ask anything. But we don't discuss Harper except to establish that she's loved, cared for, and not up for judgment. Understood. Understood. The evening shifted into something resembling actual conversation. Garrett talked about his work challenges of maintaining network security, satisfaction of solving problems that stumped others. Harrison shared stories about Victoria's childhood. Diane softened fractionally. Midway through dessert, Harrison's phone buzzed with an alert, shifting his expression from relaxed to frustrated. The new security system. $50,000 for enterprise-grade equipment, and it requires reset 3 times a day. Garrett recognized the opening. Firewall rules conflicting with IoT devices. You configured it like a corporate network, but smart home systems need different protocol handling. Harrison's eyebrow rose. You know how to fix it? 5 minutes, if you trust me to touch the equipment. In Harrison's study, mahogany desk, leather chairs, first editions lining walls, Harrison pulled up the router interface. Garrett's fingers moved with 8 years' confidence, SSSHing into the router and identifying the problem immediately. Here, you've got a rule-blocking port 8883. That's MQTT, the protocol your Nest thermostats use, and this rule conflicts with UPnP for your smart TV. He made changes with economical keystrokes, saving configuration and initiating reboot. Try it now. Everything responded smoothly. Harrison's expression shifted to grudging respect. Impressive. My firm's IT department couldn't figure that out in 2 weeks. College degree taught me theory. 8 years at Sterling Solutions taught me practical reality. Theory doesn't fix your router at 2 a.m. when the network crashes before a client presentation. Harrison studied him with new interest. You could sell yourself better. You have valuable skills. I'm not selling myself. I'm doing my job, taking care of my daughter, trying to be a good person. If that's not enough, then you're measuring with the wrong metrics. They returned to find dessert giving way to coffee. The atmosphere noticeably warmer. Victoria's eyes found Garrett's with a question, and his slight nod communicated volumes. They left 3 hours later, exhausted but intact. In the car, Victoria collapsed against the seat. That was a disaster. Worst dinner of my life. I can't believe you walked out. I can't believe you came back. I can't believe I told them we're getting married. Victoria's confidence wavered. We haven't actually discussed that part, the actual marriage part. Garrett turned to face her. We haven't discussed. I know I got ahead of myself. But in the moment with them judging you, I needed them to understand this isn't casual. You're my future. She paused. If you want to be. Garrett thought about the evening, the judgment, the exhausting performance of proving his worth. He thought about going home to Harper, about being alone, about another decade of failed dates. I want to be. Your future, Harper's and mine, all of it, even the impossible parts. Victoria's smile blazed. Even my terrible parents, even your terrible parents, though I'm drawing the line at country club memberships. Deal. The following weeks brought tangible progress. Harrison called Garrett directly with networking assistance that evolved into genuine conversation. Diane invited them to dinner again at a restaurant Garrett suggested. Victoria officially listed her condo for rent, marking commitment to shared future. They started apartment hunting, looking for something near Harper's school, affordable on Garrett's salary alone. Because Victoria insisted if anything happened to her income, she didn't want them trapped. Then in April, 4 months after Christmas night, Harrison called a meeting. The text was formal and ominous. Family meeting. Sunday, 11 p.m. Attendance required. They arrived to find the full Ashford family assembled. Harrison stood by the fireplace with the bearing of someone delivering a verdict. Thank you for coming. There's a matter that needs addressing. His gaze landed on Garrett with uncomfortable intensity. Garrett, I've had a private investigator conduct a background check on you. The room went cold. Victoria shot to her feet, fury radiating. You did what? I needed to be certain. My daughter is considering marrying a man we barely know. He pulled out a folder, and I found several concerning items that need clarification. Victoria looked like she might physically attack her father. Stop. Stop talking before you say something unforgivable. Let him finish. Diane's quiet interjection came firm. Your father has a right to protect you. Fine. Victoria's voice could have etched glass. Finish. Get it all out. Harrison opened the folder with prosecutorial solemnity. Your financial situation is precarious. Significant credit card debt, medical bills, and collections, no savings. You've been passed over for promotions 3 times in 5 years. Your apartment building has multiple code violations, and your daughter's been to the nurse 14 times this year, suggesting either neglect or, that's enough. Garrett stood, his voice cutting through Harrison's recitation. Harper was beside him. When had she arrived? The realization that his daughter was here hearing this catalog of his failures cracked something in his chest. You want clarification? Fine. My credit card debt is from my wife's medical bills, and funeral costs insurance didn't cover. Medical bills and collections are from Harper's broken arm 2 years ago. I'm paying them slowly because that's all I can afford. I have no savings because every spare dollar goes to my daughter's needs. He was shaking. I've been passed over for promotions because I won't work overtime or travel. I have a child who needs me home every evening. The apartment has violations because it's all I can afford in a neighborhood with good schools. And Harper goes to the nurse because she has mild asthma, and the school nurse is kind enough to let her rest rather than send her home to miss class. Garrett turned to Victoria. This is what I was afraid of. This is exactly why people like me don't belong in worlds like yours. We can't hide our failures or explain them away. We just fail out loud where everyone can see. He looked down at Harper, whose eyes were filling with tears. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I tried to make this work. Garrett, please. Victoria reached for him, but he stepped back. You deserve better than this. Better than constant struggle. Better than defending your choices forever. Find someone who fits your world. You are good enough. You're everything I want. But I'm not what you need, and Harper deserves more than being the poor relation everyone tolerates. He took Harper's hand and headed for the door, ignoring protests, even Harrison's attempt to call him back. In the car, Harper's question emerged small and broken. Are we not getting a family anymore? The question destroyed him completely. I don't think so, baby. I'm sorry. But I liked Victoria. She was going to be my mom. Harper's tears came in earnest, and Garrett had to pull over because driving while crying was dangerous, and he was crying too. They drove home in silence. Garrett helped Harper into pajamas and tucked her in, sitting on the edge of her bed while she cried herself to sleep. Mrs. Kowalski found him in the dark living room an hour later. She'd heard them arrive, heard Harper crying, and let herself in. What happened? Garrett told her everything. Mrs. Kowalski listened, then delivered her verdict. You're a fool, a noble fool, but a fool nonetheless. I can't let Harper grow up feeling lesser. So instead you teach her that love quits when things get hard, that when people judge you unfairly you run rather than fight. Mrs. Kowalski's voice carried 7 decades of wisdom. You're not protecting her, you're protecting yourself from more rejection, more humiliation. But that little girl doesn't need protection from judgment. She needs to see her father stand up and refuse to be diminished. She wasn't finished. Have you asked Victoria what she thinks? Or did you make this decision for her the same way your wife decided to die without giving you a choice? The comparison hit like a physical blow. Claire had chosen for both of them. She'd been wrong. He'd survived, but barely. And now he was doing the same thing to Victoria, deciding she couldn't handle the judgment, taking away her choice because he was too scared to keep fighting. Harper appeared from her room, pajamas rumpled. Dad, are you giving up because you're scared or because you really think it won't work? The question was devastating. Both, I guess. But you always tell me being scared is okay as long as you try anyway. You said being brave means doing the thing even though you're scared. Harper climbed onto the couch beside him. I'm already hurt. Walking away hurt me. Not having Victoria hurts. So if protecting me means I lose her anyway, what's the point? Garrett had no answer. His 7-year-old daughter had identified the fatal flaw in his reasoning. His phone sat on the coffee table lighting up with texts. Mrs. Kowalski handed it to him. Victoria's messages scrolled across the screen. Please call me. We need to talk. My father was out of line. I told him so in terms requiring years of therapy. I'm not giving up on us. Hope you're not either. Together, I like the sound of that. Garrett looked at Harper, watching with hope mixed with fear. He looked at Mrs. Kowalski, whose weathered face carried encouragement. He called Victoria. She answered on the first ring, her voice raw. I'm sorry for walking out, for making decisions without you, for letting fear win. I was wrong. You were protecting Harper. I was protecting myself. Harper set me straight. 7 years old and more courage than me. He paused. She wants to know if you're still willing to have us. Both of us. Of course I am. I told my father exactly what I thought of his investigation, and my mother agreed. She was furious with him. Victoria took a shaky breath. My mother stood up for us, told him that running background checks on the man her grandchild loves was behavior of someone more concerned with appearances than family. Come back tomorrow. We need to talk properly. Harper tugged on Garrett's sleeve. Say yes, Dad. Tomorrow, that coffee shop, 10 o'clock. We'll be there. The coffee shop reunion was swift. Harper ran to Victoria immediately. I'm sorry about Grandpa being mean, but I still want you to be my mom. Victoria crouched to Harper's level and gathered her close. I still want to, more than anything. Later that week, Harrison requested a private meeting at Milano's, a restaurant Garrett chose. I owe you more than an apology. Harrison's hands shook slightly. I need you to understand why I did something inexcusable. He took a breath. When Victoria was 16, she got pregnant. Diane and I convinced her to terminate. Told her a baby would ruin her chances. 2 weeks after the procedure, she was in the car accident that destroyed her ability to have children. We took away her choice, and then life took away the possibility forever. The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. She's never forgiven us. When you came into her life with a daughter after we'd stolen that possibility, I panicked. I hired the investigator because I was terrified you'd take her away somehow. But I almost destroyed her chance at family. Harrison pulled an envelope from his jacket. I want to make amends. The check had enough zeros to make Garrett's vision blur. I can't accept this. You can and will. Not as charity, but as what family does for each other. Let me help carry that burden. The pleas in Harrison's voice made it real. On one condition. This is a gift freely given or it's nothing. Agreed. Though I hope what changes is that we actually get to know each other. Garrett took the handshake, feeling tentative alliance forming. Saturday afternoon, Diane arrived at Garrett's apartment with expensive pastries. Harper was arranging cookies. The knock came precisely 3 minutes after Diane entered the building. Thank you for having me. Diane held the bakery box like an offering. Harper assessed her directly. I'm Harper. Are you going to be my grandma for real or just visiting to check if we're good enough? Diane's composure cracked. I would very much like to be your grandmother. For real. If you're willing to let me try, though, I understand I need to earn that privilege. Harper considered this. Do you know about space? Not particularly, I'm afraid. That's okay. I can teach you. Want to see my project on Mars rovers? Harper pulled her toward the science display. Diane followed, genuinely engaged. The afternoon unfolded easily. Diane asked intelligent questions about Harper's interest school challenges. She shared stories about Victoria as a serious child. The moment that changed everything came when Harper asked her question. If you become my grandma for real, does that mean I'm good enough now? Dad said some people think I'm too much work. Diane's teacup froze. Oh, sweetheart, you were never not good enough. If I gave you that impression, I was terribly wrong. Harper studied her. So you don't think Dad's a bad choice for Victoria because of me? I think your father is making my daughter happier than I've seen her in years. And I think you're a remarkable young lady. Harper absorbed this. Adults mess up. Dad says the important thing is trying to do better. Your father is raising you to be a better person than I managed. The visit extended past 2 hours. When Diane prepared to leave, Harper hugged her spontaneously. You can come back. I can teach you more space stuff. I would like that very much. After Diane left, Victoria texted. Mom just called. She's crying happy tears. Says Harper is the most remarkable child she's ever met. Also says you're a better parent than she ever was. I think she means it. She does. And Garrett, I love you. I love you too, both of you. Several weeks passed in a blur of normalcy that felt miraculous. Victoria officially moved into Garrett's apartment. They found a new place together, still near Harper's school, but with an extra bedroom and actual natural light. Harrison helped with the down payment despite protests. Garrett started planning the proposal with careful attention to detail. This needed to be perfect, not expensive, but meaningful, incorporating Harper. He called Marcus at work. I need a favor, planetarium access after hours, custom presentation. Marcus whistled. That's romantic. Yeah, my buddy Todd owes me. What do you need? Private viewing after the evening show, photos projected against the dome. Needs to end with a question. Will you marry me? Will you marry us? Harper's going to be part of this. Even better, send me the details. The ring was his grandmother's simple gold with a modest diamond intended for Claire but never worn. He turned it over, hoping Claire would approve. Harper was easier to involve than expected. Can we talk about something important? She sat up immediately. You're going to ask Victoria to marry you for real. How did you... Dad, I'm 7, not stupid. Do you want to be part of it? Because this isn't just about me marrying Victoria. This is about all 3 of us becoming a family officially. Like we ask her together, that would be so cool. Can we do it at the planetarium? That's exactly what I was thinking. Harper launched herself at him. Best idea ever. The evening of the proposal arrived with clear May skies and unseasonably warm temperatures. Garrett told Victoria they were taking Harper to see a special Mars show at the planetarium, a makeup celebration for Harper's March birthday they'd been too busy to properly observe. Victoria accepted without question, her hand finding Garrett's as they walked from the parking lot. The regular show played to conclusion, visitors filing out while the Hayes-Ashford family remained in their seats. The planetarium director appeared, Marcus's friend Todd. Good evening. We have a special presentation tonight, a story about 3 people building a family among the stars. Victoria's confusion was palpable as the lights dimmed and the dome illuminated with the first image. The coffee shop where they'd met, the park where Harper had first talked to Victoria about orbital mechanics, Garrett's apartment where they'd built trust through homework and shared meals, the Ashford estate where everything nearly fell apart. Diane's second visit where acceptance finally came. Each moment of their journey displayed against artificial cosmos, ordinary and extraordinary simultaneously. Marcus had done excellent work, images fading seamlessly while soft instrumental music played beneath. Victoria was crying openly, her hand pressed to her mouth. The final image appeared, the 3 of them in Garrett's kitchen covered in flour from a baking disaster, laughing with unself-conscious joy. As it faded, words appeared in letters made of starlight. Will you marry us? Garrett stood, pulling Harper up with him. He pulled out his grandmother's ring. Victoria Ashford, you walked into my life when I'd given up on happiness. You chose me and my daughter when the world told us we weren't worth choosing. You fought for us against your family's judgment, stood beside us when it would have been easier to walk away. His voice shook but held. You saw Harper not as baggage but as a gift. You saw my struggles not as failures but as evidence of priorities. You saw me completely and chose me anyway. Harper stepped forward, taking Victoria's hand. And I want to ask too. I want you to be my mom for real, forever. Not just on paper but in my heart. I love you, Victoria, and we're asking together. Victoria nodded before either finished speaking. Yes. Completely, forever, without question, yes. I'll marry you and be Harper's mother and choose you both every single day for the rest of my life." The ring slid onto her finger perfectly. Harper cheered, the sound echoing in the vast space, and Garrett pulled them both close, his family complete in a way he'd thought died with Claire but had simply been waiting to be rebuilt differently. The adoption finalization happened on a Tuesday afternoon in June, 2 weeks before the wedding in Judge Martinez's courtroom. This is one of my favorite types of cases where everyone involved clearly wants the same thing. She looked at Harper directly. "Miss Sullivan, do you understand what's happening today? I'm getting adopted by Victoria, so she's my legal mom forever. And then in 2 weeks, we're all getting married." Excellent summary. Miss Ashford, do you understand that by adopting Harper, you're taking on all rights and responsibilities of parenthood? I understand completely. Harper is already my daughter in every way that matters. This just makes it official. Mr. Sullivan, do you consent? Absolutely. Victoria has been Harper's mother in practice for months. We're catching the paperwork up to reality. Judge Martinez signed with a flourish, then came around the bench to shake their hands. Congratulations, you've built a beautiful family through intention and choice rather than accident of biology. She crouched to Harper's level. And you, young lady, are very fortunate to have 2 parents who love you enough to fight for you. I know. I'm pretty lucky. They celebrated with ice cream, then an impromptu planetarium visit. Standing in darkness while constellations wheeled overhead, Garrett felt 7 years of weight finally lifting. Wedding preparations consumed the final 2 weeks despite their insistence on keeping things simple. Diane handled logistics with military efficiency, respecting their wishes while ensuring perfection. Harper's dress arrived pale blue because astronauts didn't wear pink. Victoria's elegant ivory dress, Garrett's tailored suit that Diane insisted on paying for. The night before, Victoria stayed at her old condo per tradition. Harper sat coloring while Garrett tried not to think about everything that could go wrong. Are you nervous? A little, but good nervous. Me too. Harper set down her crayon. Dad, is it okay that I'm excited even though it means Mom Claire isn't here? The question cut deep. Your mom Claire would want you to be excited, sweetheart. She loved you more than anything. Victoria being your mom now doesn't erase Claire. You have 2 mothers, one who gave you life and one who's here to help you live it. That's what Victoria says too. I like that she doesn't try to replace her. Love doesn't work like replacement. You can love both your mothers without taking away from either. Your heart's big enough. My heart's huge. It has room for everyone. The wedding day dawned clear and warm. July 1st, delivering on summer's promise with cloudless skies. The Botanical Gardens Conservatory was transformed when they arrived, white chairs in a semicircle facing an arch woven with flowers. 25 guests total. Victoria was already there, having abandoned tradition. You're stunning, Harper preened in her blue dress. You're pretty too. Not princess pretty, but scientist pretty, that's better. The ceremony was officiated by Victoria's law school friend. We're here to witness something remarkable. Not just a marriage between 2 people, but the formation of a family built on choice rather than chance. Garrett, Victoria, and Harper have been living as a family for months. Today they're making it official. Garrett's vows came first. Victoria, when you approached me Christmas night, I thought you were crazy. Turns out you were just brave enough to ask for what you wanted. You saw past my failures to the person I was trying to be. His voice steadied. I promise to keep choosing you back in easy times and hard through everything life throws at us. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and the person who sees you completely and loves you anyway. He paused. I choose you. I choose us. Today and always, because partnership isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about choosing someone and building something real even when it's hard. Victoria's vows came through controlled emotion. Garrett, you taught me that family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up and doing the work even when it's hard. You and Harper gave me purpose when I'd resigned myself to loneliness. Her voice strengthened. I promised to honor Claire's memory by loving Harper as fiercely as she did, not to replace her, but to add myself to the family she started. I promise to stand beside you through struggle and joy. I promise to build this family with intention and courage." She paused. "I choose you. I choose Harper. I choose us, today and forever." Harper stepped forward with the rings. "I have something to say, too." Her improvisation made people laugh gently. Everybody talks about parents promising to take care of kids. But I promise to take care of you guys, too. I promise to tell the truth even when it's hard. I promise to remember we're a team." She paused. "I promise to love you both forever because you loved me first. And I promise to clean my room without being asked. Sometimes." Laughter spread through the gathering. Even Harrison was struggling with composure. The rings were exchanged, simple gold bands inscribed with December 24th, the night they'd met, acknowledging their real beginning. "I now pronounce you married." The kiss sealed both ending and beginning. When they pulled apart, Harper wrapped her arms around both of them in a three-way hug. The reception was informal appetizers and champagne in the garden room, children running between tables. The small cake was decorated with constellations. Harper made a toast standing on a chair with juice. "This is about Mars rovers mostly, but also about family. Like Curiosity and Perseverance work together to explore Mars, we work together to explore life. And I have the best parents in the solar system. Maybe the universe, but we won't know until we check other planets." Genuine laughter rippled through the gathering. Harrison approached Garrett during a quiet moment. "I wanted to thank you for giving me the chance to be better. Watching you with her, seeing the father you are, it reminded me what actually matters. Not success or status, but showing up for people you love. You're showing up now. That's what counts. I'd like to be part of her life. Not the controlling executive, but just a grandfather who wants to know his granddaughter. Harper would like that. She's already informed me you're teaching her about investment portfolios next weekend." Harrison's laugh was genuine. "She's going to run a company someday." As evening approached, Garrett found himself alone with Victoria for a moment, watching Harper dance with Harrison. Her small feet standing on his expensive shoes. "We did it. We actually pulled this off. We built a family, out of nothing, against all odds. That's bigger than pulling off a wedding." Victoria pulled back to look at him. "I love you. I love Harper. I love this strange, imperfect, absolutely perfect family we've created." "I love you too, all of us." Harper appeared, inserting herself between them. "This is perfect. Everything is exactly right." They left the reception as twilight settled over the gardens, Harper between them, holding both their hands. The drive home was quiet, comfortable, filled with the easy silence of people who'd found what they'd been searching for. At their new apartment, the one they'd moved into together just last week, they stood on the small balcony looking out over the city lights. Harper pointed out constellations visible despite urban glow, explaining orbital mechanics and cosmic distances with her characteristic enthusiasm. Garrett watched his daughter, their daughter now, legally and permanently, and his wife, and felt something settle in his chest. Not the desperate hope that had carried him through 7 years of isolation, but quiet certainty. They'd built this. From desperation and pragmatism, from impossible proposals and investigated backgrounds, from rejection and determination and slow accumulation of trust. They'd built it deliberately, brick by brick, choice by choice. Not the family anyone predicted, not the family that made sense on paper, but family nonetheless, constructed through intention rather than accident, sustained by commitment rather than biology. Harper's voice carried into the night, explaining the universe with 7-year-old confidence. She'd learned that family-like space was infinite enough to hold all the love you were brave enough to offer. A man who'd learned that protecting his daughter meant teaching her to fight, not running from difficulty. A woman who'd discovered that family could be chosen as deliberately as any career path, that infertility didn't make her less worthy of motherhood. And a child who'd shown both of them that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the decision to love anyway, to trust anyway, to believe happiness was worth the risk. Victoria's hand found Garrett's. What are you thinking? That we made it, that this is real, that we're actually going to be okay. More than okay. Victoria smiled. We're going to be extraordinary. Harper turned from her constellation lecture. Can we do this every night, stand here together and look at stars? Every night we want to. Garrett crouched to Harper's level. That's the thing about family. You get to decide what traditions matter. Then this is our tradition. The three of us, the stars, every night we can. Harper hugged them both fiercely. I'm glad you were brave enough to try, Dad. I'm glad Victoria was brave enough to ask. I'm glad we all chose each other. Me too, sweetheart. Garrett's voice caught. Me too. Later, after Harper was asleep in her new room with its glow-in-the-dark star stickers on the ceiling, Garrett and Victoria stood in their bedroom, a space that still felt new and unfamiliar but was slowly becoming home. Do you ever think about how insane this all is? Victoria asked, leaning against his shoulder. That we went from strangers to married in 7 months. Every day. But then I think about the alternative, another decade of being alone, of Harper growing up without a mother, of you resigning yourself to isolation. And suddenly insane seems like the sanest thing we ever did. The courage to begin. Victoria repeated words Judge Martinez had used at the adoption hearing. That's what she said mattered most, not knowing if it would work but being brave enough to try anyway. We were brave together. That made the difference. Victoria turned to face him fully. I need you to know something. This. She gestured, encompassing the apartment, the marriage, the family they'd built. This isn't settling. This isn't second best or practical compromise. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Harper both. Even though we came as a package deal, even though I bring all my baggage and complications, especially because of that, your complications are evidence of your priorities. Your struggles are proof of your character. And Harper? Victoria's voice softened. Harper is the greatest gift anyone could have given me. The daughter I thought I'd never have. Garrett pulled her close. Claire would have liked you. She would have appreciated that you don't try to erase her or pretend she didn't exist, that you let Harper love both her mothers without conflict. There's no competition with a memory. Claire gave Harper life. I'm just honored to help her live it. They stood in comfortable silence for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what they'd accomplished. From impossible proposition to actual family, from strangers to chosen partners, from desperation to something approaching contentment. Thank you for being crazy enough to approach me in that restaurant. Garrett finally broke the silence. For being brave enough to ask for what you wanted instead of settling for loneliness. Thank you for being brave enough to say yes, for trusting me with Harper, for building this with me even when it was terrifying and uncertain. We're going to be okay, aren't we? More than okay. Victoria's certainty matched his own growing conviction. We're going to be extraordinary, because we chose this, because we choose each other every day, because we built something real from nothing. Morning came with sunshine streaming through unfamiliar windows. Harper appeared in their doorway, already dressed in NASA pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Is it weird that I have 2 moms now, one in heaven and one here? Victoria sat up, patting the bed beside her. Harper climbed up, settling between them. It's not weird at all. It's actually pretty amazing. You have more love, not less. More people who chose you and fought for you. That's what I thought. Emma at school only has 1 mom and she's not even nice. So 2 moms, even if one is in heaven, is better. Harper's 7-year-old logic was flawless in its simplicity. Can we make pancakes as a family? That's what families do in movies. That's what families do in real life too. Garrett ruffled her hair. Come on, let's make terrible pancakes together. In the kitchen, flour ended up everywhere. Harper insisted on adding chocolate chips for science. Victoria proved surprisingly incompetent at flipping pancakes. Garrett burned the first batch while trying to prevent Harper from adding more chocolate chips to the batter. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. This was what they'd built, not a fairy tale or a romance novel or anyone's idea of how families should form. but something real and solid and earned through intention rather than accident. As they sat down to eat slightly burned, overly chocolatey pancakes, Harper raised her glass of orange juice. "I want to make a toast like at the wedding. To our family. The one we chose. To our family." Victoria and Garrett echoed their glasses, meeting Harper's with a gentle clink. "And to being brave enough to try." Harper added her serious expression, suggesting she understood the weight of what she was saying. "Because if you hadn't been brave, we wouldn't be here. To being brave enough to try." They repeated, and Garrett felt the words settle over them like a blessing. Later that morning, Garrett found himself on the balcony again. Coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. Victoria joined him, her own coffee steaming in the morning air. "What are you thinking about?" "How 7 months ago I was sitting in a restaurant being rejected again. Convinced my life was always going to be like that, failed dates and isolation, and watching Harper pay the price for my complications." He paused, organizing thoughts. "And now I'm here, married to an incredible woman. Harper has a mother who loves her fiercely. We have a family, an actual, real family. Built from nothing," Victoria added, "from desperation and loneliness and the insane decision to propose marriage to a stranger. Best insane decision you ever made, without question." Victoria's smile was radiant. "Though I think the best decision was yours, being brave enough to call me back, to meet me for coffee, to introduce me to Harper. You could have walked away at any point. You chose not to." "We chose each other," Garrett corrected gently. "That's the point. Not fate or destiny or cosmic intervention. Just two lonely people deciding to try something impossible, and then choosing to keep trying even when it got hard. Partnership over passion." Victoria quoted their early conversations. "Building something deliberately instead of hoping to stumble into it accidentally. And look what we built." Through the balcony door, they could see Harper in the living room, arranging her stuffed animals in precise rows while explaining something scientific to them. Her voice carried clearly something about gravitational waves and space-time continuum. "She's going to change the world someday," Victoria observed quietly. "That little girl is going to grow up and do extraordinary things. Because she had two parents who loved her enough to fight for her. Because she learned that families are built, not just born. Because she learned that being different isn't something to hide," Garrett added. "That having two mothers, one in heaven, one here, makes her special, not damaged." "We did that." Victoria's voice carried wonder. "We gave her that gift. We gave it to each other, too." Garrett turned to face her fully. 7 months ago, we were both convinced we were too damaged, too complicated, too different to deserve love or family. And now we have both," Victoria finished. "Because we were brave enough to ask for what we wanted instead of accepting what we thought we deserved." Harper appeared in the doorway. "Are you guys being mushy because I'm trying to explain quantum mechanics to Mr. Bunny and all this romance is very distracting?" They laughed, and Harper grinned, clearly pleased with herself. "Come here, scientist." Victoria held out her hand. "Tell us about quantum mechanics. We need education." Harper launched into an explanation that was probably 60% accurate and 100% enthusiastic. Garrett and Victoria listened with the attention of parents who understood that these moments, ordinary morning conversations on a balcony in July, were the real magic. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but the accumulation of small choices to show up, pay attention, and love deliberately. This was what they'd built. This was what they'd chosen. And it was extraordinary precisely because it was real, imperfect, and complicated, and hard-won, and absolutely worth every moment of uncertainty that had brought them here. Not a fairy tale ending, but something better, a deliberately chosen beginning, renewable daily, built on honesty instead of fantasy. Partnership over passion, choice over chance. Family constructed through intention rather than biology. And in the end, that made all the difference. As Harper finished her explanation and demanded pancakes despite having just eaten. As Victoria laughed and Garrett caught her eye with shared understanding as the summer sun rose higher over their new home and new life. One truth crystallized with absolute certainty. They were going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to be extraordinary. Because they'd learned the secret that eluded so many. Love wasn't something you fell into or waited to find. Love was something you built brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And they'd built something worth keeping.